try to get through the 12th. Yep. All right. All right. So now we're going to be back on for every other Tuesday. I figure probably, what do you think? Mid-September, once school starts, we get back into weekly.
I'd say after Labor Day.
Okay. All right. So after Labor Day, we'll get back into weekly. Oh, there you go. There we go. All right. What do we got?
And after Labor Day, can we go back to the earlier hours?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll go back to 8 o'clock. So
I would think maybe we want to go back to 8 o'clock when the time goes back, fall back.
Oh, that's a good point.
I think we're gonna miss Tuesdays with volleyball.
Yeah.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Jeff, that's for the post.
Yeah, Jeff, geez, come on. All right, so we're going to talk about the 12th Amendment today. We're cruising along here. We're doing all right. The 12th Amendment's a long one. It's a little red one. I mean, this is one of those that if you ask anybody what the 12th Amendment is, almost nobody knows. So what it says, and I'm going to read this thing. It is long. I'm probably going to have to move way out of the way because I had to make it big because it's so long. So what it says, basically the 12th Amendment is going to cover electoral college. Now the electoral college was obviously set up in Article 2, if you remember that. And we're going to talk about why the 12th Amendment was necessary here. And it's kind of a cool story. But what it says is that the electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for as vice president. And they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president and of all persons voted for as vice president and of the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all of the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest number, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all of the states shall be necessary to a choice. Now, the section here that I'm about to read in the bracket, the next sentence, was actually modified by the 20th Amendment. So this is no longer in force for the 12th. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as president, as in the case of the death or other constitutional disability of the president. Now we're back in force. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. Whew. So it's a lot. As we go through it, it only does a few things. So what it means, a long amendment that most people don't ever read, its length has a simple purpose. It changes Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 through 6. Now, if you remember when we talked about Article 2, Well, I don't even remember what my notes are already. I don't want to get ahead of myself. If you remember what we talked about, here it is. The Constitution originally called for electors to nominate 2 people for president, right? So they would vote the one who got the highest, it would just be one vote. The one who got the highest number of votes was the president. The one who got the second highest number of votes was the vice president. That's how they originally had this set up. You're going to see here in a second, though, how that didn't work out so well. So now the 12th Amendment now requires electors to vote for one person for president and one person for vice president. That is the biggest change, and that was the biggest reason for the 12th Amendment. There's other things it covers, and we'll get into that. Before I move on, does anybody have anything right now? Anything off what I read? Your brains are mush now at this point.
That was a lot of words.
It is a lot of words, man, and it's a lot of legalese, and well, it's really not. You know what? If you break it down when you're reading it, it's pretty easy to understand. It's a lot of words. I'm sure Renee started crocheting or whatever there while I was reading that.
I'm not muted.
So, other things that it specifies here. I thought I had more. Well, let me go on here. So other things that it specifies, it has the inhabitant clause, which discourages a president and vice president for being in the same state, right? But if you read it, and nowhere in the Constitution does it actually prohibit a president and a vice president from being from the same state. What it does prohibit are the electors being able to cast votes for a president and vice president from the same state. They will be ineligible to vote at that point. All right. And we'll talk about that in a minute, why that's such a big deal. It also specifies that the procedure should the president and the vice president not obtain the majority vote. The House will then choose the president from the top 3. The original Constitution had him choosing from the top 5. So there was a small change there. And this is where they dictate that each state gets 1 vote. So Wyoming has the same power as California if it were to happen today. Wyoming has a population of 600,000. They would have the same power as New York or as Wyoming, which when we were talking about with this election, if you remember, if it came down to that, where it had to go to the House, Renee, I think there we go. Questions, comments on that, on anything? Any of the stuff that it covers?
No, I'm excited about this story. Like I kind of know a little bit about where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know what? Maybe I'll talk about it right now, real quick, with the inhabitant clause. So normally the inhabitant clause would not be a big deal, right? Because landslides, they win by wide margins. It doesn't really matter. Okay. But if you look back on the 2000 election, right, where it was George Bush and Dick Cheney, and both were living in Texas at the time. Now, Cheney he had a vacation home in Wyoming, I think it was, and he ended up selling his home in Texas and claiming residency in Wyoming and registered to vote in Wyoming, so that he was then, for the election purposes, from Wyoming. But had he not done that, and they were both from Texas, if you remember, that came down 271 electoral votes is what they got, right? They only won by, it was like a 5-vote margin that they ended up winning by. So now keeping in mind that the rules are that the electors are disqualified from voting. So they would have lost all of Texas, all of the electoral college votes there if they were both from Texas, because that's what it does. It says that the electors are not allowed to vote. Not that they can't run together, but the electors from that state are not allowed to vote in it. And they would have lost at that point. They would have brought up the 12th Amendment, and they would have won it. because clearly, if they were both from Texas, those electors can't vote, and they would not have had what they needed to in order to win the election. So it doesn't happen very often.
No
what's
global
that?
warming. Al Gore would have fixed global warming.
Well, you know, he invented the internet, so we at least have that. Thanks, Al. We're only here tonight because of Al Gore. So that's that. Let's see here. I don't know where. Oh, here it is. So I got out of order. So it should have gone 1, 2, and then up to what it means. But so why the need for the change? And this is actually a pretty cool story. So we know how the Constitution was originally written, right? Article 2, Section 3, I think it was, Clause 2 through 6. And they had it in there where you just vote outright, and the top 2 get it, right? Top one's president, second one was vice president. So this was proposed in December of 1803, and it was ratified by the states in 1804 in time for the election in 1804. And the reason there was such a hurry to do this, so we had 2 horrible elections. 1796, Federalist John Adams, he was elected president, while his Republican rival Thomas Jefferson was elected vice president. And it was just a disaster. Jefferson and Adams did not see eye to eye on anything when it came to politics. And Jefferson was actually trying to thwart Adams' presidency from the inside. He wasn't supporting him on anything. They were at each other the whole time. But because John Adams got he got the most votes, and Thomas Jefferson got the second most votes, and the way the Constitution stood at the time, that's what we had. We had Adams and Jefferson. So we move on, and they let that one go. Well, we move on into 1800, and the Republicans decided, and this is where partisan politics really started kicking off. The Republicans decided they wanted both offices this time, right? They weren't going to let the Federalists in there. And so they voted just for the Republicans. And what happened was the way it went was the vote actually split right down the middle for Jefferson and Aaron Burr, and that sent it to the House. Now the House realized what they were doing, and the House started trying. Now remember, the House gets to choose at that point out of the top 5. So what it came down to, I want to say just a couple votes, 1 or 2 votes. The House almost made Aaron Burr the president of the United States in objection to the Republicans. The Republicans wanted Jefferson in there, and they wanted Aaron Burr as the vice president. But because of the way the Constitution was written, they almost were able to get Aaron Burr in there instead of Thomas Jefferson. Luckily, they had to do, and we ended up with Jefferson in there. So that is the catalyst for the 12th. At that point, sorry about the language, but I'm sure this is exactly what they said. I think they all sat down and they said, look, this is bullshit. Something needs to change here, because we are getting screwed. We are about to get screwed. And this is an absolute disaster the way it's written. And there was very little talk on the 12th Amendment, 1803, and it was ratified quickly. There was only 3 states, and I don't remember which states. I know Massachusetts was one that did not ratify, but it was one of those crazy things where they came out in 1961, ratified it anyway, just in symbolism. And I don't remember who the other 2 states were that did not ratify, but there was enough. They had enough states to ratify it in 1804, in time for the 1804 election. And it's obviously been in force ever since. So, you know, moving through that pretty quick. It's only 9:30. Anybody have anything? But that's it. I mean, really, there's not, for as many words as there are for this this amendment, it doesn't do a whole lot. It just cleans up some stuff. You got to remember, when we started this thing, we said that in order to form a more perfect union, nobody claimed that this was a perfect union, right? It was just a more perfect union than we had under the Articles of Confederation. So, and this is one of those things that come the 12th Amendment, that they're going to just try to make it a little more perfect. Another fun little fact on this: this is the last amendment that we will talk about. This is the last amendment to have the original founding generation that proposed it voted on it. After this amendment, starting with the 13th Amendment, there were There was a different generation who had been elected. There were younger guys in there now at that point. So this is, the 12th Amendment is the last one that the founding generation voted on. So I thought that was pretty cool. So anybody?
Suppose you could still have a Republican president and a Democrat vice president, though.
You could, theoretically. Theoretically, you absolutely could, if it got to, oh, you mean just straight out of the Electoral College?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically you could, because there's nothing tying them to vote for the team. But that's essentially, that's what the 12th Amendment did, though. It allowed the parties to put their team in now, instead of just, because before this, it was just anybody who wanted to run would run, and then you would go and
Number
vote
one,
for
number
him.
two.
Is he quiet, or am I losing my sound here?
Don't be an asshole.
Oh,
I
he was
quiet?
quiet. He was
No,
quiet.
I'm
You are a
kidding.
little
He is
quiet.
I need the beep, the beeper. Bill, you're very, very quiet. Yes.
Which according to Renee doesn't happen very often, so we're going to appreciate this.
No, he's always quiet.
So
All the feedback I used to give.
So anybody questions, comments, anything on this one? Let me go back to it, make sure I covered everything I wanted to cover.
Let me see. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I turned my mic up a little. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I think I covered it all. Yep, I don't think I left anything out. Anybody have questions? Anybody have comments? Anything about the 12th Amendment? Like I said, this is one of those that the 12th it doesn't really, well, I mean, it could affect you, could affect all of us. But typically day to day, the 12th Amendment does not affect our lives. We get a close election like we did in 2000, the 12th Amendment is going to be a big deal. And I'm sure it was talked about. I don't remember back then, but I'm sure it was talked about at length. Although Cheney had moved. He saw it coming, and he did move in time and claimed residency in Wyoming. So,
Well, you know what? It'd be nice if they would put in a residency time period where you have to be a resident of a state for a certain amount of time before you can claim that as your running state, just to prevent things like that. I mean, because it's clear that's why he moved. It's not like
that
he
is
moved
why
there
he did
because
it.
he wanted
100% that's
to
why.
live
And
in
if you
Wyoming.
read anything in the history of it, I mean, that is absolutely 100% why he did it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, there
that
should
and
be like a
things
four-year residency.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney running for Senate in Utah like 5 hours after he moved officially from Mass to
Right.
Utah. Nonsensical.
And won.
Yeah, gonna represent the state that you've lived in for 4 hours. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. What was I gonna say? I had something.
Mitt Romney is a douchebag.
He was no, stop. That's for the
Yeah.
after.
Sorry.
God,
Right,
Renee,
it is for
can't
the
you
after.
control that? He's in your house.
Well, it is interesting though that states, put laws into place that say you can't just move there to vote in the state election, but yet we have nothing that puts a residency limit for the national election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was one of the things with the Georgia runoff. I mean, because every state's different. I mean, some of the states, I guess most of them probably have a cutoff, right? There's probably some kind of deadline where you have to be living in the state and registered by, whatever certain date. But if you remember, that was a big thing with the Georgia runoff.
Right.
They were talking about shipping all those people in there. All the heavy, all the big donors were buying vacation houses and buying houses down there, and they were going to allow these people to move in and claim residency there for the runoff. Until they found out that Georgia was like, look, if you didn't vote in the election, you can't vote in the runoff. But
Right.
we obviously all know how that played out. I mean, I'm not sure.
But it is interesting that, the states can have the residency requirement, but for the national election, there isn't
Well, and that
one.
would be, again, that'd be a convention of states issue now at that point, at this point.
Right.
Right, we'd have to amend the Constitution again. But yeah, I mean, and I don't know, and I didn't delve into it as deep as I could have. I still don't understand what the thought process is behind that. Not having two from the same state, unless they're just worried about one state really being too powerful, I guess. Having the entire seat of the executive from their state.
Yeah, I feel like I heard something about this. Like there was concerns about, a president and vice president tandem being more concerned about their state than the national office.
But you still got, I mean,
That was a concern at some point somewhere. I don't know if that's how much that rolled into
and
this.
I guess, I mean, that's the only thing I can figure, but you've still got, I mean, all the checks and balances. I mean, the laws still got to go through Congress. It's not like the president is really that powerful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about what his duties are.
But yeah, and remember when this was written though, 1804, like states' rights were, there was more of a state allegiance than a national allegiance.
Oh, no, for sure.
Right.
It's
for sure.
different than it is today.
And they
you know?
were, and everything they viewed was in the lens of how is this going to adversely affect the states?
Yeah.
Whereas now we don't, now it's how is this going to make the federal government more powerful? Is how it's viewed now in politics, not how is this adversely going to affect the states, or, how is this going to help the states? It's how can we grow the federal government bigger and bigger and bigger? That's all they look at now.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting amendment. Like I said, it's one of those that you're never going to even realize is there until all of a sudden you realize it's there, like in the 2000 election, or almost with this election. I mean, this is where it's spelled out now. How the House is going to choose the president.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know who were the top three. So if nobody got it, it would have been obviously Biden, it would have been Trump, and who was the third?
You almost have to be with
Clinton.
no, you almost have to think it was libertarian, whoever the libertarian candidate was. I don't remember who.
Joe. Was it that Joe Jorgensen?
It might have been. Was that her this year? I don't even remember. Was that this year or 4 years ago? I don't even
She was
remember.
in the Green Party last year, or the last time it was Gary Johnson.
In
Joe
this
was
past
in
election? I wonder who it would have been, because they could have chose from any one of those three. Wouldn't that have been something? Nobody gets it. Next thing you know, Gary Johnson's the president of the United States. Everybody's like, what the hell? And nothing you can do.
Yeah.
God.
Couldn't be worse than what we have now.
Oh,
Oh,
it
I'm
had to
sorry.
be
I didn't
better.
say that.
Gary smoking doobies at the White House.
Dude, you know what? I mean, even God, I mean, I like Trump, I do, but I mean, just get rid of third party that nobody voted for, and let's just see what happens. I mean, it can't be worse.
Are we ready to move to the post?
No, I'm just, it's an interesting thing, because they could have chosen whoever was third on the list. If nobody got the required votes,
Yeah, and
House
that's
could
the
have picked anybody they wanted in those three. And if it would have kept it with a 5, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and obviously it's not realistic, but like just the thought exercise of like the amount of Republicans that hated Trump, it would have been like, I still don't want to vote for this guy. And then the amount of Democrats that only had Joe on because the rest of them were so radical, then those radicals weren't on the ticket. So it's like,
Yeah.
like man.
I mean, how many would have it taken? It wouldn't have taken, I mean, I guess it would have taken quite a few, but I mean, to pick that third candidate, man, just to be done with it. Oh, you want to talk about flipping Washington upside down. That would have been amazing. So, but yeah, so that's the 12th. Anybody else? Anything? Kathy, anything?
No,
Howie Hawkins and Joe Jorgensen were the other two people in the presidential election.
So Joe,
Election. Yeah.
Yeah, 2020. Howie Hawkins and Joe Jorgensen.
who is the third? Do you know? Probably Joe Jorgensen.
Jorgensen had to have been third.
Right.
Because I've even heard of Howie Hawkins.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, it's crazy though, man, when you think about it. So, all right. So next week, I am really going to try Wednesday, Thursday or so, a few days before, just to get kind of an outline of what we're going to talk about. I'll try to get the links up there, the resources that I'm using, any case law that we're going to talk about, just to steer you guys into, so you can kind of develop your thoughts on it. Because I think some of the time too, maybe you guys are looking at, we're all reading different things. So maybe if I have an outline of this is kind of the way I'm going to go with this, and then everybody can kind of get on board, maybe we can open it up a little more. I don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think? Yeah, no, don't make me do this work if you guys aren't going to use it. I know Kathy will.
I don't read. I'll just be honest.
I'll read it. But where are you thinking of going? I think you said the 12th was where you're going to stop. What's the next
do you
direction
mean?
you're going?
The 12th I was going to stop.
I thought you were going to stop at the 12th Amendment.
No.
Oh, okay. We're keeping going. Okay, good.
Oh yeah. This is the only thing I said about the 12th is that this was the last amendment that the founders,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
the founding generation had written. But no, we're actually 13th is a big one, man. You guys remember what the 13th is? You know what the 13th is?
Shit. No.
Slavery.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a big one, man. Changes the course of the country. So, and it's timely. Critical race theory, everything's going on, talking about how America was founded on racism. We're going to talk about it right here. So
Does that mean the 1619 project's gonna get brought up?
no, we're going to talk about the Constitution. Now we can talk about the 1619 project in the post.
That's fine.
1619 project has nothing to do with the Constitution as far as I'm concerned.
No, you're right.
Revisionist history. And there's no reason for me to even give them the time of day to talk about it. We're going to talk about
Amen.
what's in the Constitution, and that's what everybody should be learning. So,
Yep.
That's right.
all right. Anybody else? Anybody got anything on the 12th before I move on? Before we leave? Before we go to the post? All my bourbon
Good
drinkers are
job.
going to tune in. I got a little bit of I got some bourbon stories for you.
Ooh, all right.
Did I cut somebody off? What'd you say?
No, I just said good job.
Oh, good. I feel like I went through it a little quick, but
No,
not-
it's
not
good.
much
Other
to
than
it.
it being long-winded, it's really quite simple.
man, it is
Right.
too. When I was reading it, I was like starting to go cross-eyed. I was worried I wasn't even on the right line. I'm trying to read it. I'm keep my finger on it. I'm like, good Lord. Yeah, that's a tough one to read, but yeah, it really is simple though. I mean, I just feel like they could have condensed this thing down to one paragraph,
Well, see, this is what you learn in business now with email. You can be succinct. Back then, they weren't that way.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, there was no.
And everything's
Get to the
spelled
freaking
out.
point.
Somebody
Yeah.
was getting paid by the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
All right. All
Okay.
right. So before I leave, I'm going to check the chat real quick. Do we miss anything in the chat? Is anybody reading?
It was, but I don't think we missed
Nothing really.
anything. Good show on HBO about
Yeah.
John Adams.
Yeah. But yeah, Hamilton definitely did also write about Burr. Hamilton wrote a lot of shit about everything. So
Well, Hamilton and Burr, they had the duel.
yeah.
Yeah, Burr ended up killing him.
But I think what you're talking about though was the big thing in the paper, the pamphlet thing was because Hamilton and Adams were at odds there, and he wrote
No,
something that actually
this
kind
is
of pushed
about-
Adams over the edge to make the president.
No, this is Thomas Jefferson, Aaron Burr in the election of 1800. Hamilton wrote a big time thing in the might have been the New York Post. I think he started that paper. But he wrote an article just kind of that swayed some of those electors to make the final vote for Jefferson over Burr.
And that's huge, man. I mean, when you think about what a figure Thomas Jefferson is for this country, I mean, had Aaron Burr become president, it would have changed the course of the country. I can't even imagine how things how things would be, how things would have gone, the road we would have gone down.
Yeah, because he was a wishy-washy, snake kind of guy, and that was so early in the country. It took a while for us to get some more snakes
Yeah,
at the
no,
higher
Yeah.
offices.
now we have a den.
Jim,
All
did you-
right,
Did you post
Uh,
on the,
Pit. You keep
not
talking
bad,
about the pit.
9:45.
did you
got out
post on the
pretty,
Constitution page about the dueling in the Olympics?
What's that?
Did you post it? Or did I see that in a historical thing? So I think it was 1806 and 1808 Olympics. Dueling with pistols was an Olympic sport.
What?
They used-
Oh, like,
Not lying.
Who-
They used
who gets the fucking silver in that?
Hey,
well,
this
here's
is a
here's-
family thing.
they used waxed bullets,
Okay.
and they wore like a canvas overcoat and a helmet.
Wait a minute,
Not
we
lying.
could bring that back with paintball.
That would be
Oh, man.
awesome.
Yep, that's what I said. I said nowadays they do it with paintball. It'd be awesome.
You know what? I would be an Olympic athlete.
Okay, let's go to the post.
Okay,
No, actually, we want
Stop
someone to see
recording
here-
now.
We want someone
Alright.
to see this one. They might bring it up and make it reality.
that would be cool.
That would
All
be
right,
awesome.
everybody.
All right, I'll see you
Bye.
guys over there.
Chat the 13th next week, but let's go to the post.
Okay.